Hello varlets, the new patch notes for the latest content drop, Tools of War, has just dropped. In this video, I'll be going over some of the key highlights, and boy am I excited for it. Kicking things off, we're getting the ability to see whether we've earned a blessing for re-blessing. This will come in the form of a tiny magnifying glass and will appear on both the weapon card details and the item list that appears in your stores, your loadout, and the shrine itself. We also have 10 new weapons in this patch, and here's what they are. For Psykers, we are getting 2 new 4-sword marks, the first of which is the Deimos MK4. This is the 4-sword that Catfish teased us with back in the comms link last week. It reads that this is a 4-sword with a focus on single target damage and precision stab attacks. Elite Killer 4-sword, here I come. The other 4-sword, and I honestly can't believe we're actually getting 2 of them, is the Illisi Mark 5. This 4-sword has a focus on horde management. When charged with warp energy, it cuts through groups of enemies with increased power. We have a 4-sword now! Moving on, Ogryns have 4 new toys to play with this patch. You are getting the Brunt's Pride Mark II Bully Club, a more basic vanguard and relentless moveset that can be weaved in with slaps and punches. This sounds like it's going to be more of a horde-centric rather than the current one. You're also getting the Brunt Special Mark 3B, a bully club that is designed to send opponents flying with uppercuts and strike downs. This is going to be a purely anti-armor bully club by the sound of it. I like it. The other 2 weapons you're getting are heavy stubbers, more Daka for Ogryns. The first one is the Gorgonum Mark IV Heavy Stubber. This is an even heavier stubber and works like an anti-air naval gun. It's harder hitting but fires slower as well. The other heavy stubber is the Achyls Mark VII. This is a relatively light heavy stubber that has increased mobility and is preferably used at shorter ranges. Creatures get a new Thunderhammer, as teased by Catfish before, the Ironhelm Mark IV Thunderhammer. This version of it is better at dealing with groups of enemies. It can cleave through multiple light enemies before dealing the obliterating blow once it's activated. Vets, you are getting a new power sword, the Munitorum Mark VI Power Sword. It's a power sword with a more varied moveset. Alright, maybe bringing in some diversity with your power sword playstyle. Finally, we have 2 new combat shotguns, and oh boy are they spectacular. The first is the Agripinaa Mark VII Combat Shotgun. This is an accurate, fast-firing, long-range combat shotgun with a boost to weak spot damage. Its special round is to load in a powerful, hard-hitting, single-shot slug round. That's right, we have a slug shotgun now. The next combat shotgun is the Kantrael Mark IX Combat Shotgun. This is a powerful and aggressive combat shotgun with a widespread and high damage. This will be spectacular at destroying hordes, and to top it off, its special round is to load in an incendiary round that sets enemies on fire. So, those are the 10 new weapons that we are getting in this patch. It is way more than I expected, and I'm really excited to play with them proper. Speaking of which, I will be testing them out and doing reviews on them, so if you want to be around for when that drops, consider subscribing to keep up. Moving on, we have a handful of new conditions and condition combos. The new conditions that we have are Shock Troop Gauntlet, Specialist Spawns are doubled and spawn in waves now, oh boy. Ventilation Purge with Snipers, Fog covers the missions and snipers will guard random locations in the mission. Well, I hope you have your head on the swivel for this one. Now, the condition combos basically takes all the conditions that we have now and creates a pair from 2 of them. Here's a list of all the condition combos that will be dropping with the update. Now, let's talk about the Armoury for a moment. It has now moved to be opposite Hadron. No longer will you need to run back and forth to buy weapons and then run all the way back to Hadron to tinker with them. Now, as you exit the Psyker, you can go straight to the Armoury exchange to test out different weapons and maybe gamble for different stats. Next up is Peril Overhaul. My siblings, I have good news. Essentially, this entire wall of text translates as passive peril quelling has improved a lot. I'm talking like 50% faster than it is right now. They've also normalized quelling rates to be more linear. What that means is now you should be quelling peril at a consistent rate no matter how much peril you have. Before, you would quell peril much faster when you were at critical levels of peril and then slow down as your peril level dropped. Importantly, they also increased the passive quell speed on non-force weapons. They quell peril 25% faster than they were. Rejoice, my siblings, our loadouts are more open again. This increase basically puts them back before they were nerfed if we include the additional changes made here. Finally, they gave us a toggle to adjust the peril effect's intensity. Now, you can choose not to have that strange monkey screaming in your ear whenever you're at critical peril. This can be found under the interface tab in the accessibility option. Next, we have some notable enemy changes, key of which are talk sounds should be easier to stagger with melee weapons when they are disabling a player. Drake shotgunners should more readily engage in melee than before. They also reduced the damage fall-off distance for shotgunners from 15 meters to 8 meters. Now they have to be closer to hit you as hard as they did before. They tweaked the toughness damage, aim duration and shoot cooldown of shotgunners and assault troopers as well. Now they aren't so oppressive anymore. Hounds will spawn more frequently in the hunting grounds. They increased the number of specialists that can spawn on Heresy and Damnation, as well as increasing how many of the same types can spawn at once. Going down the list, next we have both debuffs and buff icons. Debuffs will show up with a red frame and in a separate row, where your buffs usually are. Some feats have also buff icons to let us know that they are active or applicable. The notable feats in this are mainly for vets, and that includes Camo Expert, now you can see if it's active or not. Deadshot, it now tells you how long you have that feat active. And Demolition Stockpile, now it shows you the duration until the next grenade is replenished. Very useful. Moving on, we have some balance changes. First off, we have the Thunder Hammer, the current one, not the new one. They increased the light damage impact modifier on Maniac and Infected to do full impact damage. That means they take the full staggered impact from the hammer. Increase damage against Carapace armor to 50% for both light and heavy attacks. This is up from 25% more, which is good news. Now your charged heavy bonks to Carapace will deal more. Finally, they increased the first target light attack bonk to deal full impact against Flak, Maniac and Infected enemies. Next, we have buffs to the Obscurus Mark II Foresword. This is our existing Foresword. They increase the overall damage of the Foresword light attacks, heavy attacks, and its effectiveness against flak armor to do full damage. I wonder if this helps reach any new breakpoints. We also got a truckload of buffs for Ripper guns, so as told in the last comms link, Can Opener has been fixed to now only work on the stab attack. However, they've doubled the number of stacks of brittleness per hit. They've also increased the stagger strength of the stab, so it can basically stagger everything, including crushes reliably. They've increased the damage and armor pen on stabs, reduced the reload time by 30% and have reduced the movement penalty when you're reloading, so you move faster when you're reloading. Finally, they've also reduced the wield time by 30% and reduced the movement penalty across the board while shooting or bracing the gun. So in general, it just feels much nicer to use the Ripper gun across the board now. That's a lot of buffs to go through, and the initial response I'm observing from Reddit is that this is a very welcome improvement to the Ripper guns. Finally, we have a buff to the Heavy Stubbers. Reduce the reload time and wield time by 30%. This makes the gun more fluid to use. We also have some buffs and changes to our classes. First of which are for Psykers. Psykers are getting a buff, yeah! First one, Warp Unleash now affects all damage. Hell yes, if you've been watching my content, you'll know that from the very first time I covered this feat, I wanted it to work across all melee weapons to give you that battle mage feeling. Well, Fat Chunk has gone above these expectations and buffed it to work on all damage. That is a free 10% damage just for equipping this feat, which means there might be new breakpoints that Psykers can reach automatically just from having this. Quicken now increases warp charges generated from all sources to 2. Ooh, yeah! This was something I was talking about before. Quicken, which is the final column feat that reduces your Psykinetics Wrath cooldown based on how many warp charges you had, needed to have something else to help it with this loop, and looks like we've got it. And I think this opens up some really cool build crafting for Psykers. We have a new feat called Wildfire. This feat replaces the old Kinetic Overload, and it reads as follows. If an enemy dies while affected by Soul Blaze that you've applied, up to 4 of their Soul Blaze stacks are spread between nearby enemies. The total amount of Soul Blaze stacks on new enemies cannot exceed the stacks of the dying enemy. Wow, they really overhauled the Psyker's feat. This change alone opens up a lot of potential for Soul Blaze builds to become very strong. The only question I have are, how big is the radius? And can I spread this infinitely? Guess I have to do some testing to find out. Sharpshooters, you're getting some love too in this patch. Exhilarating Takedown now reduces toughness damage taken by 10% for 6 seconds. Stacks up to 3 times. My lord, damage resistance. I wonder if you'll be indestructible if you have unwavering focus on as well. Covering Fire now also grants 10% damage buff to the affected ally for 3 seconds. Free damage for applying supporting fire to your allies. Next, we have some weapon blessings as well. Crucian Roulette has been changed. Now, it gives you crit chance based on the number of bullets you are missing and has been adjusted on a weapon by weapon basis. For the Stub Revolver, at a tier 4, which is the max level for this blessing, it gives you 5% per bullet missing. So, your final bullet will have a 20% crit chance on its own. For the Headhunter Autoguns, a tier 4 Crucian Roulette basically means you get 0.5% crit chance per bullet missing. This means magazine size is now much more important for Headhunter guns that want to use this perk. This also means, depending on your magazine size, this change could be either a buff or a nerf to what it was before. All or Nothing has also been changed. The meme blessing of the game now works differently. On top of increasing the power you gained from a measly 4% to now 15% at a tier 3 blessing, It now works the other way around. You gain more power the less stamina you have. This also works in steps, so you gradually gain more power up until the maximum as your stamina goes down, which means you always have some power as long as you aren't at full stamina. Unfortunately, this means it no longer works for Psykers using Brain Burst to reach the 2-shot Crusher Breakpoint, which I showed last time. Oh well, the blessing Death Splitter has been buffed for auto guns, las guns, heavy stubbers, and combat shotguns. Now, it stacks up to 5 times and resets after 1.75 seconds. This duration is 2.75 seconds for the combat shotguns, however. Peril-based weapon blessings now get 1 stack per 20% peril. This makes it much more consistent than it was before, where the last 2 stacks were gained at 97%, when you couldn't cast anything useful anyway. This change affects Warp Nexus and Unstable Power. Following this is a bunch of bug fixes and tweaks, but I'll leave that for you to read in your own time. I'll link the patch notes in the description below. So, that brings us to the end of this video. It's a great patch all things considered. The improvements to blessings, class feats, the balance changes, on top of the new weapons has got me all excited to play and test things out. So, now, if you excuse me, I'm gonna go hop onto the game and play around properly now. I hope you found this video useful. Consider dropping a like or subscribing if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. Varlets.